Welcome back to the Surf and Sales podcast. Apparently, Zoom doesn't tell us that they're recording anymore. I didn't notice that. That's a new feature
Are
it's
you
got.
sure you're recording, Richard?
It does say recording up in the top, and it gives me the little
Okay.
pause button. So just
Okay. We're all clear then. We're all clear.
well, we think we're all clear. That's let's assume that. So if we have to come back and do this, we'll have to apologize to our guest profusely for making him waste his 2 hours of time with him instead of just 1 hour.
Yeah.
But
Well,
how are you, bud? It's been a
he can
while.
invoice you. He can invoice you.
Yes, he
I'm hanging
can.
in there.
Yeah.
While you were off vacationing last week, I was
Yes.
sick. I was home
Oh, were
sick as a
you?
dog. Yeah, with a head cold. It was terrible.
Oh man, I'm sorry. I did not know that. So,
Yeah,
but
it made your Hawaiian vacation all the more frustrating, to be honest with you.
well, I do live to frustrate you, so we know this.
Yes. Yes.
That's called winning in Richard's book, since I can't
Yeah,
beat
that
you in
is
revenue
winning for you.
games. So,
Take the win where you can get it.
yes. So we have a super fun and special guest with us today, Shawn Sease. What is the name of it? Never respond. What is the CEO founder of what is it called? What do you go by?
I I never answer.com.
I never answer.com, which of course is the first question of what the fuck does that mean? Where did that come
Uh,
from?
yeah. Well, we are a third party outbound agency. So we spend most of our time trying to get opportunities or build familiarity or gather info with people's next best customers. And so the I never answer.com was just a play on um, you know, get rid of the people who never answer the phone and won't talk to you. So I never answer.com. That's what it is.
Gotcha. So you're in the cold calling game then? Can we suffice it to that, or is it more nuanced?
Fair enough. Fair enough. No, I'll take on the. I'm in the hated space of cold calling. It's what we do exclusively. Well, that might be a little bit of a stretch because we do email and LinkedIn outreach for people, but in kind of a more structured or systematic way beyond just multi-channel carpet bombing.
Got it. Okay. So what does that mean? Without giving away the secret sauce, what does it mean rather than carpet bombing? Because I think that's all everybody knows how to do anyway. And they're afraid
Yeah.
to try something else, right? Like
Yeah.
what's the mistake aside from the obvious there?
I'd say probably, and I'm just going to call you out right here, is believing that there's a secret sauce is probably the biggest error that people make. It causes them to do all kinds of stupid things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I would say this: the secret sauce. This is just from experience of talking with founders or CEOs or people that come to us looking for help. Is that they won't do the work. They literally will not do the work. So one of my biggest challenges, or what we made the company, like our objective, our North Star at our company is find good customers. And that comes from that belief that there's a secret sauce that if you just build a list and call people, you'll get meetings and they'll turn into revenue. And it doesn't work that way. And most of our people that come to us are pretty desperate. And we spend most of our time trying to do a really deep discovery to the extent that we're not saying it's a secret sauce, but people are saying, oh my God, I didn't even think of it that way. That's interesting. Nobody ever said that before. And then when I hear those words, I know, okay, we potentially have potential good customer here because they're not asking me, how many meetings do you guarantee? Because the guy I just talked to said that he can get 20 meetings a month for $7,000. I'm like, you should go work with him because he sounds like he's better than me. I can't do that. I don't know how that works. I've never seen that work. So go ahead and do that.
You're working through phone primarily, email a little bit, social a little bit. Are you seeing any changes in the kind of conversion rates of those things? Because everybody, including me, seems to have belief and or chatter like, well, the phone pickup rates are down, the response rates are down. Do you see that universally? Is it very industry or kind of specific, company specific, case by case? What do you see in terms of the data?
So just the raw data, if we removed all of the confounding variables, and I mean on all sides, like rep talent and so on, like take it, and you take out what you sell, who you sell it to, the sales cycle, how much it costs, all that stuff. Connect rates, are anywhere between 2 to 8%. It's pretty wide because that's a huge spread. But on the low side, it's 30 people in 1,000 answer the phone. On the high side, it's 320 people, answer the phone. So I would say it's like 2 to 8% dial to connect rate seems to be universally what's happening. I haven't seen it change in years. Conversion rates on first time connects, when you first call someone to get a meeting, is somewhere around 5% lower, 1 in 20. Which I haven't seen change much. I think it's the confounding variables in there that really make the difference. Who you sell to, how you sell it, the sales cycle, and so on. And then rep talent, and then also leadership's kind of scope of what happens. The real, I agree with you in terms of when you chime in on LinkedIn about cold calling is somewhat dead, and you're saying it. I hear what you say. You're saying, from my perspective, the people I'm talking to, what I'm hearing, like you're not hyperbolically hoping that cold calling doesn't work and being a smart ass. You're like, right. You're actually saying, here's what's happened. And then when I see people stand up and say, well, explain this, we did this the other day, right? And you're like, well, I'm not here to fight for my side. I'm just saying, this is what I heard. This is what I'm seeing. So for us, what we see is an imperfect understanding of what happens during first time connects. And that's where all of the real problems start, when people over index on what they can get out of a first time connect. And what I mean by that, what we kind of see, and again, this is just me with all the clients that we have and so on, is that there's kind of you could put people in two groups. There's a group of people who have it in their head that cold calling is a linear pipeline process, that you build a list, you make calls, you get meetings, they turn into opportunities, and you sell stuff. And they're over indexing on what they can get out of a first time connect. And then when that doesn't work, they go further upstream and start buying all kinds of other tools and gadgets and widgets, whether it's intent data, all these other things. They're making those decisions out of abject failure as opposed to getting things correct on a first time connect. And what I mean by that is saying that we're going to start curating our own rich set of contact data internally through the signals that we get when we talk to people, and then making the pipeline about follow-ups. And one statistic that I have that we've been able to prove over and over and over, and I've done this with help from Chris Beal at Connect and Sell using their data set, because they have a lot of conversations over there, that 2x to 12x more meetings, opportunities, qualified pipeline come from follow-up calls compared to what happens during first-time connects. And so that's kind of how that's what we based our business on, is basically changing the scope to what you can get out of a first-time connect.
So that leads to the question of, what is the expectation then of a first-time connect if it's not to try and set that meeting, or maybe it is, but you know what I mean? If we're seeing a better result from the second connection, what are we just trying to do in the first connection aside from establish rapport?
Yeah, I would say that you probably don't. For me, I don't think you have to look too much further than just regular human interaction with people, where when you meet someone, you want to say, "Excuse me, my name is Shawn. I wanted to introduce myself. I got a question for you. You got a second?" Mm-hmm. It's as simple as that. I don't know how or when we turn cold calling into some. Well, I suspect it's because of the SDR industrial complex, that when you hire SDRs, if you buy all these tools, you must get these outcomes, because that's why you're doing it. And that's why I'm saying, usually buying the tools in the role, the next thing you try to do comes from failure, not from success. And it's like, the Elon Musk quote, the worst thing an engineer can do is optimize something that shouldn't exist in the first place. And that's what's going on there. So again, first time connects. I can't just say, hey, everybody, you should get this out of your first time connect. It depends on what you sell. And for example, I'll give you a real live example. We had a client come to us, or prospect come to us, who had reputation management software, which just by the quick analysis of what they do, it being, let's say it's $100 a month. So if you pay for it for a year, it's $1,000, right? You get 20% off because you paid for a year. Highly transactional, right? This person wanted meetings. And I just said, what do you want a meeting for? Like, you just told me that this thing will get rid of bad dings or bad reviews on Google or Yelp or whatever in less than a day or two. So give me a list of people. Let me put this together. What we did was we put together a campaign that said, because this was super easy, right? We could find the targets because they got bad reviews. You could just scrape till the cows come home. There's a signal there, right? So we called up and said, hey, I'm calling from XYZ Reputation Management. And the reason why is we saw you got a couple of negative dings. We wanted to take a crack at getting those wiped out for you and then take a shot at earning your business. You mind any objection to me getting rid of 2 of those for you in the next 5 days? And then we'll get back here and sign you up. And people are like, wait a second. What do you do? What's going on? So in my first connect, I create this curiosity. We're like, what? I'm like, you don't have to lift a finger, man. I'm going to send you a link where you're giving me permission to get rid of these. I'm going to put another meeting on your calendar for this time next week. All goes well, I'm going to sign you up for a year. How's that sound? Of course, I'm paraphrasing, but the idea is that the client came to me with, I need meetings because I got this really cool thing. I'm like, no, you don't. It's transactional and you don't even need authorization to pay for it. You need to prove it works and then get them signed up and get their credit card. What are you doing? Which is a lot different than we have a CRM and we're going after Salesforce. That becomes like, okay, I'm not even interested in you being a client, but let's say that I was. What's your plan? And to me, that's enterprise strategic. Enterprise is the right word, but strategic selling. These people are all going to be in contracts. You need to verify they have Salesforce and so on. So Richard, to answer your question in that scenario, what am I going to get? Hey, I'm calling from whatever, our new CRM. Everyone loves it. I was calling to get some time on your calendar where I could formally introduce myself, but I don't want to get ahead of myself. I got 3 quick questions for you, and I'll get out of your hair. You ready? Yeah. You're currently using Salesforce. Yeah. How long have you had it? Don't tell me you just renewed it last week and I haven't been doing my job. No, we've had it for 7 years or so. When does it renew? How many users are on it? Cool. Any questions for me? No. All right. Thanks. Maybe if I get a conversation going, but my objective for the first time call would be to verify that they're in my wheelhouse. They have Salesforce. Right. How long have you had it for? And what's the value of the contract? Because I know there's no way I'm going to get a meeting. Why would I do that? Why would I waste your time?
The purpose of that is almost just to enrich the data that you've got.
Curating the contact data forward.
And then next time, whenever that next time is, now I'd have a different objective.
Mm-hmm. Right? It's almost like you're enriching the conversation a little bit more than the data.
Right? Well, yeah, that's why I'm saying that all of the attitude about cold calling is dead or so on. It could be related to dial to connect, but when it comes to dial to connect, you may be missing your guests again, like trying to make the tools do too much stuff. In other words, if the CFO isn't answering the phone, but we sell to the CFO, the obvious answer to me is call the front desk, call someone else, call somebody else. Quit calling the targeted list that doesn't answer. It gets kind of, what are you, stupid? And I like.
Is that a rhetorical question, by the way?
Yeah. Well, that's why I'm saying that my business has become, and I think everybody always says this, you're always looking for good customers, qualify out. And after being in third-party outbound for the last 8 years, I completely and totally understand the nuance and what that means to have good customers, because you can grow a third-party outbound because it's the pipeline's full of people who are failing. Right. And they have a few more bucks. And I call it cash grab in the churn window. There's a lot of customers we know we could get $5,000 a month or $10,000 a month out of for 2 or 3 months, but they're already done. They don't have the time and runway to do it, to actually get the flywheel of follow-ups and outbound really going for them.
We have to find. This is probably part of the reason why the outsourced SDR industry has this like negative connotation around 9 out of 10 people, I think it's like 92% of people who work with somebody have a bad experience. And it's
Yeah.
because of those types of things that you're talking about. But you mentioned something before about the talent level. And one of the things that I think has been painfully obvious for these outsourced kind of lead gen agencies, SDR agencies, and what have you is the people actually making the calls are actually not very good
No,
at all.
they're no.
And the founder could be really good and have a good idea about prospecting and the process and data, and they write good call scripts and all this stuff. But then they get out of the way because they don't have the bandwidth to make the calls. They've hired people from wherever, either domestically here or somewhere,
Mhm.
overseas and whatnot. And the talent level is this precipitous drop. So how do you think about maintaining like quality control from you down to whoever else is making calls to service your customers?
Yeah. For us, that falls under hire fast, fire fast. But the way that we mitigated that problem, because it is a real problem, and I would actually say that in my experience, the most reps that I've ever managed at one time was about 30 SDRs at one time. And in that group, this is really weird. I always want to say this isn't true, but it was black and white that of the 30 people, there were probably 3 people that were just complete assassins. You could count on them. It was servant leadership. They knew the role, knew what they were doing, had all the talent in the world. Then maybe 2 people who had those same traits or characteristics, but they had other problems like discipline or they were out somewhere else. The other 25 people are just on the churn wheel. Like they don't show up, they're not responsible, they're just clowns, And so, like I said, our solution to that was to keep the company small and say no to a lot of people, because what happens for third-party agency is the churn, it's capacity, right? That we always hear, what's our capacity? We have new clients coming on, right? But there's 7 clients churning, right? It's an accordion. It's almost impossible to size because the talent pool is so pitiful,
Mm.
It's yeah. Yeah. Well,
it's not that much. It's not that much different. That math is not that much different than the whole like 80-20,
yeah.
principle. I mean, you're talking about 10 to 20% ish of your 30 reps that were quite good,
Yeah.
or capable of being quite good, and the rest of the people are interchangeable parts.
Yeah.
Right.
So we actually, like I said, after having been focused on this model and struggling and staying in it and staying afloat, making a business go of it, what I've done is I've created some things around the stuff that we've talked about here, like the weak talent pool, what you can actually get out of first time connects, etc. And the way that I have the business set up now is we basically offer 3 products. I'm still materially involved in the coaching and training we do. Like I do a 3-session cold calling and messaging workshop where I am teaching reps or teams how to do cold calling correctly with all the things that we said so far, like building a flywheel of follow-ups, what you get out of first-time connects, how to set up your follow-ups, and how to coach reps around objectives for calls and so on. So I do that. I'm materially involved with that because I actually run the sessions myself in their one-on-one. On the third-party outbound side of it, we have 2 solutions now. One is just blunt force cold calling for meetings. And the only way to come into our business that way is through what we call a lab. And that just kind of naturally evolved out of trying to find good customers. So our baseline is $2,495. We'll do 20 hours of calling. And the objective is to set metrics. How many people answer the phone? Does the message resonate, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Both sides, us and the customer, get to look at that objectively, decide what to do next with all the other variables like, hey, Scott, we appreciate the opportunity, but it turns out that, sometimes you were hard to get a hold of, so we're going to pass, or it doesn't look like you guys are, whatever it is. Both sides get to decide whether or not to move forward. And then we put together a plan and then move forward, which is basically my answer to people always asking me, how many meetings do you guarantee because your competitor does? And I say, well, go use them because the only way through here is a lab. And I tell people, I'm doing the lab so that we can find good clients. And the last thing I want to do is not be able to perform for you. So we do the lab first. If you're not interested, no problem. The third solution that we offer is a way away from meeting, because I don't want to do that. I don't want to do blunt force meeting setting for people in third-party outbound. What I want to do, because I know this is what the clients want, I want to get them in front of 10 or 40 people of their next best customers in the next 30 days, like 10 to 40 people. Like, how does that sound? That'd be great. So we came up with this. We do roundtables, and basically that was out. If you're following me, the roundtable is our way to get more out of first-time connects. In other words, I'm not calling you, Richard or Scott, to get a meeting to get you in my funnel because I have this quiver full of arrows with an antidote to a pain I hope you have, and just shooting that at everybody. What we do is we help the company come up. If the CEO or founder would be best, but even a keynote speaker around a topic, around a problem or issue that's germane to their clients. And we are inviting people to come together in a group to discuss it. Where are you with it? Have you implemented something? And then all of the goodies of outbound fall out of that. Like, we can follow up with the people who don't show up. We can nurture them. We get opportunities from the roundtable. And what I'm doing in my discovery is just nailing into the ground that first-time connects are so hard to wring something out of. If you need to get in front of people, we can provision a roundtable in the next 3 to 6 weeks. We can get up to 40 to 50 people registered for it. 10 to 25 people will show up. And then we have all these opportunities to follow up in a more practical sense. Hey, Scott, I saw you weren't able to make it to the roundtable. I was calling to get some time on the calendar to go through what you missed. The conversations get better, right? And so I'll stop there. You guys can ask me questions, because that was what I just shared with you was my evolution of, I don't know, being a glutton for punishment by staying in the third-party outbound industry and saying, hey, I don't lose. I'm going to make this work for me, the people I work with, and we're going to have a good business. So that's how we did that. We moved to the roundtable model, and it's working.
I so appreciate the simple human aspect of everything you're talking about today, right? Like, I remember being an SDR, pounding on my SDR team to follow up with everybody who didn't attend the webinar, right? And it was, and your response to that is so much more natural. Of like, hey, I saw you couldn't make it. I just wanted to get some time to share what you might have missed. Like, make them curious about it. Like, such a simple way to do it. I'm too complex to have figured that part out. But not to mention that, like, also back to what you were saying earlier about, it's not about the first meeting. It's getting those 3 or 4 questions to have better data, so that when you have a second meeting or a second conversation, I should say, it becomes more relevant. So, like, I so appreciate this sort of human approach you're bringing to it. That, as you, again, back to what you said, the SDR industrial complex is completely obliterated, in the last 10 to 12 years. So
it's taken on that whole the Goodhart's thing, that the managing to a metric thing, like even dial to connect, just looking at all these individual metrics, and it's like put all these, at some point you just have to put a list together, put them in a group, put them in a group of 250 people and start with who answered the phone today. And we want to curate those forward again, because the data, the data is just, it's indisputable. I mean, you could have to go back and say, why is this happening, for sure? But baseline, 2x to 12x plus more meetings, or even better pipeline, better opportunities, better for everybody, comes from follow-ups. And this actually brings me to another interesting topic. Some of my friends or competitors or whatever on LinkedIn, the vicious, same thing like Scott, publishing cold calling's not working for people and then getting attacked like,
vicious.
like
just
a lion.
Vicious.
So, 20 hyenas who are just trying to make people do it their way, not wanting to have a conversation, just saying that you're that you're wrong. Is let's talk about something precise, right? The opening of a cold call. I get dragged into this debate all the time because people know I'm here for it, of what I think about PBOs, permission-based openers, right? To use a permission-based opener or not. And then it's fun for me because I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to say, it's not about the permission-based opener. I have an objective in the beginning of the call for every one of my reps, and I don't care how they do it as long as they get to the objective in the framework, which is in the first 7 to 15 seconds, start a two-way dialogue or exit the call and live to talk another day. And so, because if we exit the call and live to talk another day, we may be creating the metric, but it's showing that we're getting more meetings than when we stick around and try to bludgeon somebody into a meeting, which is where the weak talent shows up, right? Which is, it sounds like when you listen to recordings, it sounds like, sure, I could send you information. Why don't we put some time on the calendar for next week? That's way I can answer your questions. And it's like, hold on, like let's be realistic. The person that said, send me info, let's listen closer. Are they really asking for info, or are they asking for a nice way to not hang up on you? Yeah, likely it's right. It's that one. They don't want to hang up on you. And that's why the it's not to use a PBO or not, but there's a couple of things in it. I'll walk you through it real quick. Hey, Scott, it's Shawn over at I Never Answer, and you are not expecting my call at all today because it's the first time I've tried to reach you. You mind if I take half a minute? I'll share with you what I'm up to, why I picked up the phone to call you today, or do you already regret it? You got too much on your plate, you know?
Yes.
And right. And so when someone says, actually, again, there's a talent component here because I can do that, not give two shits about.
You're nailing the tone. Like if I heard that, I'd be like, all right, dude, it's good.
Yeah, you say what? Okay, what? Yeah. Yeah, what is it? Right? Yeah, what are you doing? I got to hear this, right?
You can respect the ability.
Yeah, and then so what I'm again underneath, in the cold calling and messaging workshop, that's where I start. Like let's just stop right here and say and remind people that shit, if someone says I'm busy, perfect, because we know that 2x to 12x more comes from, this person answers the phone, they'll talk to me, I'm going to put them on my follow-up list, I'm going to have a disposition that says abrupt call ending so that I don't have to put a note in. I just put abrupt call ending, the database moves it over to my abrupt callback list, and then when I call them, the database itself already put everything in there. Hey, Scott, it's Shawn over at I Never Answer. I don't know if you remember, I called you yesterday around 2. You were kind enough to tell me that, boy, I couldn't have caught you at a worse time. I don't know what you were doing, but you were just too busy. But together we decided to give it a try right now. Are you still working on that, or do we do any better? Now I'm not really probably having a conversation about somebody trying to get off the phone emotionally with me. They're going like, oh, yeah, hey, what's up, man? But either way, again, going back to the permission-based opener, I'm actually trying to contrive follow-ups, right? I'm trying to create the conditions to just make it. What's a good way to say that? What do we learn from customer success as a result of the specialization of roles? Is that it seems to me that good customer service means reduced effort, right? It's not about going over and beyond or whatever. It's about doing what you said so that the client doesn't even notice that you exist. They're running their business, right? They're going to renew, right? It's when
they shouldn't have to think about you very much.
Yeah,
at all.
Right. And so I take that learning from what we learned about the specialization roles in customer, or what's another way to say that when it comes to customer success, people do prefer to self-service. There's no doubt about it. But when you get to the point that the self-service isn't working, it becomes, I just want a solution now. And if that means that somebody picked up the phone and helped you right now, that was better than your original want to self-serve. It was really the desire to get something done and back to doing what you were done. And that to me should be what's happening at the top of the funnel too, which actually brings up another topic.
Do you think
multi-shadow outreach? Yeah.
Do you feel like you eat your own dog food in the sense of this is how Shawn thinks about growing his agency? Like, do you execute things the exact same way, or do you have a totally different program and process for how do I try to grow my business and my agency? It's very different than the clients and customers I serve.
No, I would say that we eat our own dog food from a mindset and from an execution and a strategically, tactically, we execute.
So you're out there as an agency owner, and you and the team are cold calling and prospecting business owners out there every single day. Is that your primary driver to get business?
No, We do some direct outbound calling, but at this point, I'm not a big giant agency. We have a handful of callers. There's a couple of people on the operations team. The majority of our business comes from inbound LinkedIn from my content, and then referrals from guys like you, or just being on LinkedIn. So we do some cold calling, but honestly, for us, the environment's so rich on LinkedIn. We're lucky that way, that it's a haven for salespeople and even recruiters, right? If you're in the recruiting business, LinkedIn's a haven for recruiting. So we get a lot of business from LinkedIn.
Right.
What's interesting about LinkedIn to me, one thing is that the inbound that we get, this is just like a testament, I think, to impressions or reach or whatever, is that almost everybody that reaches out to me that says, hey, it was time to put time on your calendar to talk to you, always says, I've been following you for a long time and appreciate your take.
Yeah.
And
One-time follower, first-time caller, those messages.
Never noticed them. They never commented. They never liked. They never did anything. But there they are, lurking away. Just waiting.
So if you back up, right, in the time machine,
mm-hmm.
to when you first started the business, and I can't remember if you started this. Did you start this as a side hustle, or did you go all in?
No, after around 2017, I had a few years of kind of life adjustments from a divorce, raising kids myself, life, whatever, right?
Right.
I had always been a full cycle seller or business owner or whatever. In 2017, I joined a couple of guys who were doing third-party outbound, and it was my first dipping my toe into the specialization of roles, right? The SDR to AE handoff. After 25, 27 years of just inside sales, phone, territory sales, whatever, being an old curmudgeon seller,
Yeah. So my question is, at what point, and it's, I think the three of us, Scott as well, we all sort of got serious about this social thing in 2017. Right, Scott, that sounds about right. Like that's when
that's the exact year for me.
Right. The three of us really got, focused on it. How long did it take you to get to the point of not having to do the outbound, right? Where your inbound from social selling is kind of like it is today, right? Because it took a while for me, right? Like, you don't just all of a sudden, I mean, maybe you do. There's one person I know with, that Scott introduced me to with sub 500 contacts who seems to be crushing it on LinkedIn these days for business. But, how long did it take for that wheel to actually consistently move versus you maybe having to eat your own dog food to figure this out to get to that point? Or was it pretty immediate? Yeah. Was the pain already so great that people were like, yeah, I need this?
Yeah, I think it was pretty immediate. It was pretty immediate, because what I did was I just started. I've had this board behind me forever. What I did was I just put together a little block of time on my calendar in the morning, and for 15 minutes I'd shoot a video on a topic that I pretty much thought of while I was in the shower, and then I did that every single day, and then people were saying, hey, interesting take, whatever, and I started building the following from there, and then I never stopped. I just I do that all the time. I get an idea in my head and I post about it. I don't think about it. I don't curate it. I don't whatever. I just put it out there. But again, I think that it's not so much. Well, one thing would be that I was consistently posting like every single day, that I was just without worrying about what people thought or whatever. But we can't dismiss that how target rich LinkedIn is for salespeople who are just dying to win. It's just, there's so many people there that it's a target rich environment for the work that we do. So that's an advantage. You know what I mean? It's like when people say you got to get on LinkedIn, and there's a simple, I always hate saying this because it's so simple. It's like if your market doesn't hang out on LinkedIn, you can't just say social selling's the new thing. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like,
I've got a client right now who's selling ed tech into universities, and the people that they're reaching out to, generally speaking, have no presence on LinkedIn whatsoever. And they've been trying to like network, and they're not getting responses. And I'm like, well, you're sending a connection request to somebody with 300 connections who probably hasn't logged in since 2017. Right. So it's not surprising that it's not working.
See, for me, like for us, not to just jump right ahead, but when you say ed tech and they're not on social and so on, I'd imagine that these are people who probably go to great lengths to make sure they've got pretty good solutions in place. They kind of are careful about their budgets and things like that. To me, that's a perfect target for a round table where you're trying to take a group of people and maybe educate them. And right now, I don't. You can always say there's never been a better time, but honestly, for me right now, after being in sales and high tech for 30 years, I've seen so many times something new came out that was going to change the world forever, right? And the world just seemed to go on no matter what, like it just continued to go on. But like AI being the big thing right now, to me, there's all these little three-way things like, if you're trying to get new customers, they're probably in three buckets, right? They're either in market, they're open to change, or they're open to learn, right? It's as simple as that. That's all you have. And so for the roundtable, the messaging becomes easy. We're putting together an event that includes people of your title that are looking at AI as a stepping stone to get to the next level. I'm paraphrasing, of course, right? And the people that are going to be at this are either kind of in market right now, searching for a good AI solution, or they're open to it, or they're basically just trying to figure out what the hell is going on with AI. Want to get you registered for that? We'd like to hear what you guys are working on, and you can talk to other people that may be ahead of you or so on. Again, it's perfect because really what we're trying to do is get you in our pipeline and sell it to you, but I'm not going to say it to you blatantly by saying, I call to book some time on your calendar to tell you why you're stupid,
The Richard Harris approach.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you should be here. Otherwise you're stupid. That's really good. Again, just as always, Shawn, breaking it down.
That's why he's the professor of prospecting.
He is a professor of prospecting.
The professor of prospecting came from the beard and wearing cardigan sweaters in my videos. People would literally say, "You look like a professor, man." I'm like, okay,
Scott, all you need. Scott's got the beard. He just needs the cardigan.
Yeah. Well, Shawn and I look like brothers.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could go on a whole tour. Yeah, he's a little ahead of me in the hair game at the moment.
Yeah. So
it goes back and forth. I see you clean up and you go back and forth too.
Exactly. Yeah.
It does. Well, dude, we gotta move to wrapping this up. And as we always do, we always sort of like to turn it over to the guests to see if they have a question they'd like to ask us. Although, I'm intimidated of what the professor might ask me. We'll see if maybe you got a question you would love to get our opinion
on. My question directly for you guys is going to be, how do we start working together more?
Well, we've agreed that we'll only work with people like you as long as they come to Surf and Sales, to the event that's happening in October in Peniche in Portugal. That's my shameless plug. So we would always love to work with you, Shawn. But that's literally on my bucket list. I'm going to get there. It's not going to be this year. Another bucket list, Scott. Another bucket list. Yeah. Put it on the list.
We have a big bucket list.
Hold on. The fourth page of people who say bucket list.
Think you hit
I was going to say, in my defense, it's the only thing I have on my bucket list. How about that? But on a serious note, like our I won't mention their name, but the folks that we're talking to that you did mention my name to, we had an aha moment in that call, which is what really tickles me to death. When we started talking and when we wrapped up that call, they told me that is super. Your take is super refreshing. We enjoyed this call. We didn't even think about doing something like that, but it doesn't just. They were saying like it doesn't just make sense to get the most out of top of funnel. It actually, I like it all. Like the round table, like it makes sense. Like that would appeal to our audience. We like it. This is going to be great. And that always tickles me to death because it's not, I'm not over here trying to tell people cold calling isn't dead. You must do it. To me, it's more like cold calling isn't dead, but the way you go about it is probably what's killing you, and I get it,
Yeah. That's a really good analogy of that.
I get it because there's no other two ways to say it. That cold calling is hard in my discovery calls. I guess you call them discovery calls with our inbound or the people we get referred to as is just that. It's actually digging into what's really happening. And when you see the light bulbs start to go off, you feel like you're actually doing a service. And to me, I have this weird thing where let's get together and see what we can shake out of the trees, regardless of doing business together. We can shake hands and go our separate ways. You can take my ideas and implement them. I don't care. Like, I've set myself up in a way where my life's going to go on. I don't need your business. I'd love to work with you if we can, if it makes sense for both of us. But for the most part, let's do things better. That way, if you're out there cold calling, you're not making it harder on me when I cold call.
The question you asked was like, how do we do more? How do we work together and whatnot? And here's an interesting thing for everybody to think about is that referrals and partnerships and things like this, I think they're meant to be a two-way street.
Yeah.
And I think people forget about that a lot.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people think of it as, let me set up this partnership program so-and-so can send me business.
Yeah, I'll give them 1% You know who I'm talking about.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll pay them, and therefore they should keep coming because I'm paying them, and they should keep helping me because I'm paying them. But I can tell you from experience that gets old, and tedious, and frustrating at some point in time. Like, I can think of people that I've sent referrals to for years. Companies, let's say, not even an individual person, for years. And then I sit and think, how many times have these people sent me a piece of business, sent me a referral? And at some point, if I think about it long enough, I start to get irritated. And I start to think, okay, well, yeah, they picked me, but shit, how hard is it to think of me in all that you're doing? So that's what I would say back to you is like, well, I send referrals. I can do more. At some point, the best relationships and partnerships become reciprocal. And so in your comings and goings, as you think of people who are asking questions about, what's a good sales conference, or who's a good sales trainer, or who's a good, fractional sort of CRO, it's like that stuff matters, the back and forth.
Yeah.
It's not even so much about the money. It's about the helping each other out. And it's about that bond, that fellowship and whatnot. And I don't know, maybe I'm just getting old and sentimental, but I'm starting to care about that stuff and think about that stuff in ways that I never used to. So I would put that out there for everybody to think about.
Yeah, that's a good one. So I'm gonna say this to you and just ask you point blank. Can you and I and Richard find a time on the calendar where we can spotlight you guys in a roundtable and let me and my team do the work to get 10, 20, 30 people that you guys might be targeting, or your ICP or so on.
Heartbeat.
Done.
Okay,
I love that.
Cool.
Easy.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
For sure.
Okay, good. So there you go. Because that is complete reciprocity. We'll actually do the work, and
100%. And those are the types of relationships that, in my experience, last a long time, stand the test of time. They're mutually beneficial, and that's how you strengthen existing relationships.
Yeah, and see, and that's exactly how, like, when you were asking, am I eating my own dog food? I'm going to put the resources, time, money, effort into having my callers get the people to this event, because I'm going to end up getting business out of it kind of indirectly. But see, I'm using cold calling in a way that is benefiting everybody, the people, the attendees, you guys, especially my callers. They're not sleeping last night because they're losing their will to live because they're under the gun to get meetings. So I'm going to give them a list of your of 500 to 1,000 people of your prospects. They're going to get 50 or 100 people registered. 20 people are going to show up, and we're all going to have a great time. And we're running a business, and we're happy. And again, I'll say my callers are happy, right? They're not losing their will to live, and they love their job. Not to mention, if we're going to wrap it up somewhere, I could say this to people. Listen to what I'm about to say. Making the SDR role a stepping stone to AE is probably one of the most egregious errors that is going on in sales today, that needs to be wiped off the face of the earth.
Preach.
Yeah, it needs to be wiped off. And I would say this, that people need to rewind back to 2017, rewind back to before that, and remember that the specialization of roles came out of companies who were bursting at the seams with pipeline and didn't know what to do with their demand, not by founders who can't sell their nice to have to anyone.
Who had no demand. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the snippet right there.
It's been turned on its head completely,
Yes.
into
Yes.
if you build it, they will come. And it's no. Yeah. Well, one last thing. These are the clients that I have all the time. I get into these discovery calls, and guess what? There's a CEO and a co-founder and a CMO and a CRO and a salesperson all interviewing me to get them meetings. And I'm like, so how many calls did you guys make last week? I don't have time for that. I can't do that. You're like, so I'm just going to say you guys are not a good client if, as CEO founder, you're not willing to hand your card to somebody. Like, I don't know, man. What are you guys doing over there? What's happening? What's really going on over there? What are you guys doing? This isn't real. You're not trying. You're not even trying. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. Cool. We got a date. We got a date. In the background here, we'll find a time on the calendar and we'll do
Appreciate that. Sounds like a
Love
plan.
it. Love it. Love it. How can people find you? Although if they can't figure it out by now after listening for the last 35 minutes, how can people get a hold of you, Shawn? How do you want them to get a hold of you?
INeverAnswer.com. There's a link at the top of the website that just says book a consultation or whatever. LinkedIn, I'm Shawn Sease, the professor of prospecting, and my link to my calendar is there. I'd say, hey, put some time on the calendar. Let's see what you could shake out of the trees, regardless of doing business together or not.
I can't tell if you're a professor or a preacher, or a preacher who professes or a professor who preaches. I'm having a total conundrum about it. So we might have to have a roundtable to figure it out. So I'm here for it. I'm here for it. Shawn, thank you so much, man. Really appreciate you coming on and dropping a ridiculous amount of wisdom for everybody. So
you're welcome. It was my honor to be here with both you guys. I just personally have affection for Scott, probably because we have geography in common, Northern California. And Richard, I've always been a fan because you're so calm and mellow and it makes sense and so on. So thank you so much for having me.
He says I'm calm and mellow. He says I'm calm and mellow.
Well, no, I mean, you have like that. I don't know. For me, sometimes I'm always looking for people who I can actually just talk to, and you have that kind of, I don't know, wisdom, fatherly kind of. You just go to me personally. You just kind of command respect. And for Scott, I think he and I probably would maybe need supervision if we were alone together. We probably,
that's right.
Our judgment would probably.
You're the adult, Richard. You're the adult.
It's a compliment. Right. It's a compliment.
That's me, the adult. So,
but I'm honored. I'm honored to be here, and thank you so much for inviting me. I thank you guys very much from the bottom of my heart. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody, and be sure to check out Surf and Sales on YouTube. Hit the like button, give us a review on iTunes, and definitely come hit us up in Portugal in October. See you next time, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Talk soon.